Hi folks. Well, hasn't it been a most extraordinary, horrible week? We stand on the brink of the biggest war that Europe has seen since 1945, and that's certainly the whole of my life, the most notable conflict, and the one that has the most serious implications. So tonight I'll be delving a little into that without getting into the politics too much, I hope. And I'll be talking about the role ham radio has to play in helping, hopefully, with the fallout of that disaster. I usually start these transmissions at 9:30. It's currently 9:29. So thank you for joining our live stream or watching this on replay, whichever. And your support's sincerely appreciated, particularly at this difficult time. I hope the live stream I'm putting up offends nobody and adds to your knowledge not only of world affairs, but of where ham radio, a hobby that's been sidelined to some extent by the advance in communications in other areas, where ham radio fits into the scheme of things with the present circumstances. And there'll be a little bit of historical material as well. It's 9:30, time to go on air. Hello, this is, he said, reaching up for his level control. This is VK3 Alpha Mike Lima with the regular Saturday night test transmission from East Burwood. And I hope everybody is safe and well. Just when you thought we were out of trouble with COVID, another international crisis rears its ugly head, and ham radio again has some part to play in the compassionate side of what's going on. But first, from last week's coverage of Mawson and Frank Hurley on Antarctic expeditions before the Second World War, I thought it might be nice just to start off while viewing numbers are low, just for a kick-off. Some video of what Antarctic communication is like these days, how routine it has become, with this video which was taken by the New Zealand Antarctic team at their communications base at Scott Base in the Antarctic, where interestingly not only do they deal with Antarctic communications, but they deal with the occasional crank call from drunks ringing up from various parts of the world, as you will hear. Let's take you to Scott Base in the Antarctic with a view of their communications equipment.
This is the communications room at Scott Base. So this is the heart of Scott Base, we like to think of it. So we've got 4 communications operators that work here on a 24-hour day rota. And we take all of the phone calls, the emails and the radio calls into Scott Base, and we're responsible for ensuring all of the safety of the field parties. So we've got 2 different types of radio communication. We've got very high frequency, which is our normal radio, and we've got high frequency, which is our long distance radio. And then we've got the telephone, and we have a satellite telephone link as well, and we have email. Signing in and out of base is our way of finding out where everybody is in the local area, and also it gives us a time frame, so if people don't come back at the right times, we can start a search and rescue. Say if you'd fallen down a crevasse and nobody knew you were going to come home. And my pet hate is when people don't sign out, or when they don't come back in before they sign out time. You can always extend your time, but if you're late, we all start to get a little bit panicky and think you've been eaten by zombie penguins. When you're talking on the radio, make sure that you press the button and then speak. Try and speak in a natural rhythm and pitch, though you don't have to yell into the radio. And also don't be afraid, you know, we're real friendly people and we care about the people we're talking to, so you just have to talk to us as if you're going to have a conversation.
Base, this is K242.
Hello K242, this is Scott Base, go ahead.
Just crossing out on
All of the communications operators come from the New Zealand military. Obviously, we've never met each other before. We apply for the job in competition, so just like everybody else here. And although we're military, we work as if this was our civilian environment, so we don't really go by rank. But sometimes you'll see us in uniform, which can be a little bit of a shock when people forget because they see us in our normal clothes on a day-to-day basis. So not all of the phone calls that we get at Scott Base are business calls. Occasionally we get some joke calls, and sometimes we just get members of the public calling up to find out if there are any polar bears or if there are penguins, or sometimes just if it's cold. So this is our latest crank call that ended up on our answer phone.
Friday, 3:40 a.m. Yeah, here you go. I'm wanting to buy a polar bear, and a friend of mine told me that this is the number to ring. I don't want to spend any more than 5,000. I want one of those. Excuse me. I'm trying to buy a polar bear, and you guys have Sunday ketchup. How much? You're not going to buy a box of chocolates and buy a polar bear. Yes, sorry about that. I apologise. So what I want to do is buy this polar bear, and I'll look after it. But Dan, how are we going to ship it back? I'll find out. I was thinking about just driving him home. I'll bring it back. I'll tell him about it. But what I wanted to do, because I went and bought 1,000 popsicles from the dairy for this polar bear. I'll bring it back.
That is so good.
And that was made for Antarctic Research, the Antarctic Research Department, New Zealand, to whom I'm indebted for that clip. This is VK3 Alpha Mike Lima. If you're listening on 147.475, you might care to dial up the video component of tonight's live stream, which you can find by Googling the phrase VK3AML 26 February 2022. That's VK3AML 26th February 2022. Well, as everybody knows, this has been a week of crisis, particularly for Europe, particularly for the Ukraine. And it's interesting that this war is becoming probably the first war in a major way where we can see the average person's view of that war from inside, from YouTube vlogs, for example. And I've selected a few vlogs from known vloggers on YouTube, avoiding anybody who appears to be new or coming out of the blue where it could be fake news. These are vloggers who've been known for their YouTube video commentaries for upwards of 12 months in every case, so they're quite genuine, and the sites that they're seeing and what they're reporting can therefore be taken as gospel. I'm not going to get into the politics of the Ukraine situation, but no doubt everybody listening has their own opinion of that. However, I hope that listeners and people viewing on the YouTube live stream will exercise some compassion for the plight of people who are caught up through no fault of their own in bombings, in invasion, in international conflict when they have no interest in it. And quite a few of the people that you will see in the next 20 minutes worth of replay of these video vlogs have been forced out of their homes, forced to flee with only the material that they can take in their cars and head for the borders of Poland, Romania, Hungary. First of all, I'd like to introduce a young couple who were forced to flee. The man of this couple is a screenwriter and therefore has some grasp of the way things should be sequenced in vlogs and such. and he and his girlfriend found themselves only 3 days ago in the first day of bombing at the nation's capital, Kiev. So here they are. Michael and Victoria Balashk from Kiev, Ukraine.
Hello everyone. This is I'm Michael. This is
Victoria.
And this video is for my friends and family, but I thought I'll just put it online for everyone. I think it's something very interesting and a very intense situation. I am here in Kiev, and this morning I woke up around 4 a.m. for no specific reason. I was just awake really early. And will you turn that off? And so I went to the kitchen and did my normal thing, and then I opened one of the Telegram groups that I'm in here in Kiev, and they just talked about like they heard bombs or they heard like loud sounds and everything. And I followed it, and I couldn't hear much, but then I could also hear it from my apartment. So what it turned out, that was the bombing of the Borispol airport. Kiev has 2 airports, I believe, right? And so that was Borispol they bombed. And so that's when it was clear, okay, it's happening really, which at this point we were ready to leave, and we thought about leaving, and well, I guess we unfortunately we didn't take it serious enough to leave, and so.
Do you think it was better to leave in the morning?
No, before today.
Mm-hmm.
So then I woke up Victoria and I said, okay, it's happening. And so we packed everything. We're gonna leave. My roommate was there and his girl. So we were in the car, 4 of us. Then we went to your mom's place where we are right now. And my roommate's friend girl, she went home, and that was the story in and of itself. For various reasons, got complicated and everything. So we discussed a lot what you're gonna do, because everyone was leaving and there was like a lot of traffic jams, and we didn't know what's gonna happen, and because we can't make it all the way to Lviv, which is West Ukraine, which is like pretty much where everyone is going, and Lviv is right at the border to Poland. So, but you need to get gas in between. So my car is full of gas, so that was one of the preparations I did. However, it doesn't last like the 800 kilometers approximately that you need to get to the Polish border. So we are on the phone all day and doing things and communicating with all sorts of people, friends who have left, and what we should do basically. And we decided to leave tomorrow, because they also announced the curfew at 10 p.m. to like 7 a.m. in the morning. It's martial law right now. We got water and some food at the supermarket. The supermarket was full, but I have to say, like, Ukrainians are quite astonishing people. Like, there was no panic, really. People would buy things, but they wouldn't do these like kind of panic purchases, you know. They were really like, everyone was buying some things, and so were we. And then we went back, and we also checked out a bomb shelter today, which is near here. And again, lots of discussions, and I didn't answer any phone calls so much that are not related to the surroundings in Kiev, because that's what we do. All right, so that's the update. That's day 1, I guess, day 1 of the war, and we really hope that we get out of here in a healthy and uninjured manner. So. Okay, so we are just leaving. It is 7 a.m. The curfew's just lifted, and we're leaving the car. It's very scary since bombs are dropping. We can hear it. the traffic looks good so far, so apparently not so many people are leaving yet, and most have left already. And Godspeed. So there's a long line at the gas station. Some gas stations right out of Kiev, they were out of gas, but in general the gas situation is pretty stable. There was a bit of a panic, and that was one of the reasons why we left pretty late, second day of the war, which is very bad because things are getting really, really bad in Kiev. And so we are in the middle of Ukraine right now, and things look good so far. A big relief, but we are not through yet.
Now, the shelter was provided by a voluntary protector on the way to the Hungarian border, and this is his next vlog.
Be careful.
Oh, nice.
Yes, it's heating. Yeah. But we will be on the sofa and you will be on the sofa.
Yeah, that sounds great. Better than a car seat.
Okay, so this is exciting. We're here at the family, and it's like a service of where people organize themselves.
Yeah, service organized for helping people like us will share their living for people who need it.
Generally, or in an emergency situation?
They organize the service.
In emergency now,
Yes,
in the war.
they help everybody who needs. No, if they have place,
Okay.
free of pay
Cool.
even.
So yeah, this is a family right now where we are at here.
All Western people from all Western Ukraine, they organize such service.
Oh, this is really new. This is
Yes,
just has happened.
Just
Yes.
tomorrow or yesterday or today.
Yesterday.
Oh, okay. So this is apparently a really new service of solidarity service, if that's an English word. And this is like a family here. You know, we see a Christmas tree, obviously, and toys. And so we are now at this family's house who opens space for us so we can sleep. So the reason we stay overnight is because there's the curfew, and starts at 10 p.m. and stops at I think 6 or 7. So we're gonna sleep here. It's really cozy, really warm here with the oven, and then we're gonna drive like another 5 to 6 hours to the Hungarian border tomorrow morning, and then we will cross. So really nice, actually.
Let's hope they make it to the Hungarian border. Michael and Victoria Balask. And there's been a curfew, an embargo put on the emigration of any men from the Ukraine, any nationals, and I hope that Michael there is not a national. He will not be allowed to cross the border if he's between the ages of 18 and 60, because the whole nation has been put on universal military service. The whole nation of men from 18 to 60. So a lot of men who don't want to be involved with the conflict are actually trapped within the borders of the Ukraine. Here's another view by a lady named Luba, who's living in the port town of Odessa on the Black Sea in the Ukraine, and this is a vlog she made a couple of days ago. It's amazing we can actually be in the families of people who are having to suffer all of this by one of the major miracles of modern communication, and that is cost-free international video communication. Luba from Odessa in the Ukraine.
Hello guys, it's me Luba, and I decided to record this video for you today, the day that we all will remember. for a long time. So a very unusual background for me, it's just a mess that, we tried to pack and unpack and it's just crazy. So we'll start telling like what just happened. And at night at 5 a.m. we heard a huge sound of a bomb. Like it wasn't crazy because even the window started shaking. And yes, everybody was talking about that. Everybody was like kind of aware, but nobody believed that it would actually happen. And this happened, and it was very, very scary. It was about like 5 bombs that we can hear, and it was pretty loud in different areas of Odessa, but Odessa is not such a big city, so you can hear. And then we already had a ticket to go to Poland, but the flights were all cancelled, and there was no way to go to the airport. Then we decided that we want to drive to Moldova to the border, but at the moment the traffic there is for 100 kilometers, like the cars are just staying there. So it can take about 20 hours just to stay in that traffic. And we have a huge shortage of gas. So yesterday I put the full tank of gas to my car, but still it would not be enough to drive all the way there. So probably maybe we will get there, but at the same time, like no further, because there's shortage, no gas, and some gas stations, they just don't have it. Some gas stations just give it like very limited amount. So it's kind of dangerous to do it because you can get just stuck on a highway and who knows what's gonna happen. So it's 6 or 7 p.m. at the moment, so we packed, like everything is in the car, and I still don't know, like you can see, beautiful, peaceful background. We still don't know what to take, for how long, what we're gonna do, where we're gonna go. Took some medicine and like different reasons, and then I unpacked because you want to be light. And one of my friends in Moldova said, you just come somewhere and then you just leave your car and you walk. And I said, how long? She said, no, like maybe all this line, like if you walk, it will be faster. So the situation is like that. I decided to record it just to remember what is going on. And like the news are crazy. They're scaring people off. But we'll see. We'll see how this night will go. And I will try to record you another message in the morning. Be safe.
Now she shows her bomb shelter in her basement.
It is 9 p.m. here, and we have a little basement under our garage that we trying to set up in case something will happen. It was not prepared for anything. It was just like a storage, and it's very cold. But here we put some stuff, and I don't know. We may have to spend a night here. It looks like this, and hope we will not come. It's very cold, so we put it's the only heating system that we have, and tomorrow they announced that maybe there are going to be no power and no water. So we hope that it will be all right. So this is how it looks like.
And now another vlogger from the Ukraine, Olga Reznikova, who's known for her female commentaries on mostly womanly things like cosmetics and shopping and all the rest of it. Young girl in her 20s. Here she describes the conditions on the first day of the war, and remember, this was as good as it got. It got a lot worse from here when the shelling started. So she describes the shortages of gas and some of the shortages in the shops. The shops in Kiev are now rapidly closing, so that the crisis in terms of siege for the remaining residents is becoming critical. Olga Reznikova.
Hi everyone. So everybody who is asking what's going on in Ukraine, yes, Russia started at 4 a.m. bombing all territory of Ukraine, all avia bases, military bases, all kind of other stuff, storages with military stuff. So, for example, now in Kiev it was a couple of rocket attacks, and for sure so many people live in city. There is a big traffic jams on the exit. The public transportation is going for free, and many people hiding in metro stations, because in Kiev metro stations are very deep in the ground. Some is 50 meters down. We have even 100 meters under the ground, so it's actually in Soviet Union they was building it like bomb shelters, and I guess now it's really the great use for people to hide there and somehow to feel safe. Now I'm in the West Ukraine. I also actually noticed that I really didn't put fuel in my car, so now we will drive exactly to gas station. I will go to ATM to withdraw cash in case that if anything will not work. Really, this is crazy even to think about like that. And also I will go to supermarket to check how is the things, and will be showing you everything. So actually this is my fuel tank, almost empty. I don't know how I was really so much stupid to not actually think about it. So the fuel is finishing, 95 is disappearing for the people who really needed 95. And this is all the things, and the line is way bigger.
These are all people lining up for gas stations.
Okay, so I came to supermarket, and yes, there is a huge line of the people who is waiting for ATM. I actually by myself don't have a lot of cash, but I see the card is still working, so I don't want to wait on the line. I hope that this is the most peak, and a little bit later it will go down and I would be able somehow to take. In the shops you cannot really say that it's some kind of panic, but there is people on the cashier. It's a little bit more dense than usually. Let us see how the things will be. Okay, the food is still there. This is the milk, for example. All kind of products. I see sausages and all that stuff. For now, doesn't look like people really buy everything, so it is all available. So as you see, even the shelves a bit empty, that they are filling the shelves with other things.
This was on the first day of the war.
I have a baby, so I guess this one is good to buy. Okay, I would not really refer to this shop because I'm not sure how much food they used to have. Anyway, I see that yes, there is a shortage of the kind of cereals. People always eat a lot of porridges, so they really take a lot out. But the good point that always, and they take in flour a lot, and they keep bringing flour, they keep bringing salt and everything. So it seems that, see, they bring more stuff. So people are buying, but it doesn't mean that the shop doesn't have anything in storage. They have, and they keep bringing, for now at least. So my survival purchases. I take a couple of flours, I take a couple of oils. This is kind of pasta, some cereals, one salt, kids' food, cheese. So people buying flour, as you see in fact. This all line of people waiting for ATM. Here I cannot say that long really queue in supermarket. No, this is some kind of...
One point here, she talks about people lining up for the ATM, which means that people are getting money out of banks, and it's only a matter of time before the banks therefore fail. If the Russians take over, the ruble will become the currency and the Ukrainian money will be worth nothing, and then God knows what these people will do. This is VK3AML. I'm currently running on YouTube live stream and the sound on 147.475. Vloggers' recent postings since the start of the trouble in the Ukraine. None of this deals with the politics. I don't want to deal with the politics. What I'm dealing with here is the humanitarian issues and the fascinating fact that this is the first war in which personal vlogs, personal video postings have been probably easily possible, giving the average person caught up in these disasters a right to be seen around the world, which I'm hoping I'm promoting tonight. Back to Olga Reznikova with her coverage of the first day in Kiev of the Russian invasion.
Very manageable, but here you see people buying things in bulk. Eggs, potato, all the stuff. Also, I keep reading updated news in one city which is somehow in the middle of Ukraine. One rocket fell just in the middle of the city. 1 civilian died, 5 civilians injured, and all that I don't know how by any means can be justified as protecting Russian speakers. And you know the funny thing that I just opened Russian news to check what they're writing about that, and they said it is all as per constitution and as per international law. We are not breaking anything, and this is all 100% legal. So that was all for now, and if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button, so once I will update new video you will have notification. I will try to give you only the most available and information about what's happening in Ukraine. Love you all. Bye.
And now a particularly touching scrap of video that's turned up, taken on the 25th of February, the second day of the war, when total Ukrainian mobilization of all Ukrainian males between the ages of 18 and 60 was instituted. Their families, in many cases, left the country, but the men couldn't. And this is a photo of one of the fathers saying goodbye to his wife and children, evacuating to Romania or Poland, saying goodbye possibly for the last time. There have been a series of protests across Russia, particularly in Moscow and St. Petersburg, of the anti-war crew, and these people are incredibly brave. They're risking, in many cases, a jail sentence. Many have actually been swept away into jails since these demonstrations on the first 2 days of the war. You can see them being carted off. Old ladies, old men, young people, not putting up any resistance, just being carted off to jail. However, it does indicate that the feelings within Russia to this are very mixed. Sympathy for suffering. This is a posting by a Russian mother in St. Petersburg living in fear, who knows she can say little, but her face says a great deal. Listen to her words carefully.
Okay, I feel like I need to say something because I have friends in Ukraine, and the thing is that we cannot criticize what is going on. We have experience with Navalny case. After the protest, people were tracked and got to prison. Those who openly said that they disagree with what was going on. I am the only parent of Leo, and I'm responsible for my well-being as being his mother. I need to, and I have to. My personal opinion will stay with me. I one more time stress that I'm not going to publicly say what I think about it and how I feel about it. And I'm very sorry for that. I know that silence is the worst thing people probably can do, and yes, I'm coward. I should take care of my son. I can only say that I never voted for new constitution. I never chose this ruling party, and I voted for another candidate to president. I'm very sorry, and I don't feel very happy today. Not at all. I'm very sorry. As the current situation, people are scared, and the flights already been cancelled in the youth part of Russia. Airports are closed.
What can you say? Those are vlogs posted on YouTube in the last 2 days from people on both sides of the conflict who are just caught up in things that they have no part in, and they're suffering. People are dying. So what can we do with it, about it on amateur radio? Well, Carl M0SZT has made a very pertinent posting talking about the way we shouldn't get involved with the politics, but we possibly should get involved, particularly those in Europe, with the communications aspect of linking displaced people in Romania, in Hungary, and in other surrounding countries, even Belarus, with linking these people up with some help, which some people are in a position of providing. So let's have a look at what Carl M0SZT had to say about this. Carl has some good suggestions as to backing off from the politics of it, but what can we do in terms of a listening ear, a sympathetic ear, and in terms of providing information that might be benefiting these people who are displaced. Carl M0SZT.
Right, hello and welcome. This isn't the video I thought I was going to be doing today, to be honest. Very worrying events happening in the Ukraine. I think it's fair to say that Russia is now at war with the Ukraine. Just feels bizarre just saying it. So it's uncertain how things will play out over the next weeks or months with the Ukraine and the surrounding areas. One thing is certain, is that because of the takedown of the communication structures that are happening in the Ukraine, there will be a need for civilian radio, ham radio, to play a part. Now, currently in the Ukraine, ham radio is basically banned because of the emergency, the state of emergency in the Ukraine. So ham radio at the moment is banned, just to try and keep some sort of law and order. However, I have a feeling that will change as things progress with this invasion. What I want to do in this video is just to emphasize that us amateur ham radio people and shortwave listeners, we do have a role to play here, a very important role in not getting involved, keeping frequencies clean and clear. We have a responsibility for those people who are in the Ukraine, those areas, to maintain their safety. But what I want to do is actually just to look at some of the places where we may hear some radioactivity. One of the things that we would be useful really is to look at three areas of amateur and commercial radio from the Ukraine and the surrounding areas. One is the broadcast stations on medium wave. Another is looking at the use of the repeaters in the Ukraine that are connected to DMR, D-Star, C4FM, and then we've got HF that may play a part in this as well. There's a Wikipedia page that will list out the current active radio stations in the Ukraine, and you can tell by the frequencies on the left where to look for them, on whether it's on a web SDR or like I have here. I've got the amateur radio equipment and I can tune in and try and find some activity. There's a little activity on one of the stations at the moment. Whether that's pre-broadcast or live, I don't know yet. We have to be mindful as well that there's surrounding areas like the Belarus and a few of those areas that are going to be on a heightened state of alert as well. And it's possible that their radio stations, their communication networks could be affected, because this isn't going to be a surgical strike by the Russians by the looks of it. I'm no expert in this kind of stuff, but it looks really scary, to be honest. The second place to look is that there is quite an active DMR community in the Ukraine, and I'll share the link to the site where you can look up the DMR rooms and the cross-linking. So whether you've got D-Star, whether you've got DMR capability, you may be able to join those rooms on there. Like I said before, really we should just be ears. What we shouldn't be doing is contributing to the noise. What we shouldn't be doing is possibly raising security risks by getting too involved. This is purely ears only. That's my advice. That's my take on it at the moment. So there's a list here of some DMR frequencies that are worth tuning into. You don't necessarily have to have DMR equipment or D-Star equipment. Some of these rooms you can find a live feed on the internet. So the way that DMR and D-Star works is that I can transmit from this location here to a local repeater station up on the hill. That repeater station may also be connected to the internet. So not only can that repeat my VHF UHF signal locally, it'll also feed that into a electronic room, a DMR room or D-Star room, through a server, basically. Now if the internet is still running in a lot of these places, we may get activity through those rooms, so that's why I'm just highlighting them for the moment. On HF, this is where it can get a bit tricky. We may find that certain frequencies are going to be allocated to help out with the emergency. With the ban on amateur radio, I'm not sure this is going to work in this case, but there may be some frequencies allocated on certain times of the day purely for monitoring for emergency broadcasts or emergency communications. Please be mindful of them. Whether you're interested in listening for any activity in the Ukraine, just if you're an amateur radio operator, just look out for any frequencies that have been held, and avoid them. Just let them get on with it. But we may find as time goes on that CW, Morse code, maybe even applications like JS8 call may be used as well. It's unknown how this is going to pan out, whether people will actually use HF radio as part of the fallout, the emergency situation. Just be mindful it may do, and it's maybe just best to keep an eye on that and avoid that. In my previous video, I was up in the Peak District in the remote barn that I use up there when I was tuning in to the Russian ground force transmission frequencies, and there's a number of them. I'll put a link in below to where you can find those stations. They're still going, they're still running. It'll be interesting if you've got an interest in that, is maybe tune into them as well, because their activity may change. I don't know what they do when they're in a state of war, whether they just keep to the same broadcast schedules or not. I don't know. Other types of transmissions, especially on the HF, not in the amateur bands, in between the amateur bands, we may see an increase of activity, not just from the Russian forces and the Ukraine and neighbours, but from NATO. So we may see an increase of military transmissions, completely encrypted. In some ways we feel very lucky. We just sit here with all our radio equipment, with an interest in what's happening. But for those people that are experiencing it, it's nightmarish, and that really is worrying. I realise this is not the typical video from me, but normal service will be resumed as soon as possible. My next video, I'm hoping to get out and listen to nature's radio signals with just some simple equipment. So that's all organised. I'm just waiting for a break in the weather to get outdoors and do that, and I look forward to that one, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. So bye bye for now.
That was Carl. If you're looking for his website, YouTube channel, look for his call sign. That's M0SZT. That's Mexico Zero Sierra Zulu Tango. And he made that posting about 24 hours ago. Somewhat more recently, in the last 24 hours, Jason, KC5HWB, another ham radio blogger, this time from America, puts an American slant on listening to or trying to assist with the Ukrainian situation, so far as we can in a very small way. For people's information, if you know anybody who wants to listen to the latest news from inside the Ukraine in Ukrainian, the main Voice of the Ukraine frequency, if you can get it on Eastern European web SDRs, is on 549 kilohertz. That's 549 kilohertz Ukrainian radio. UR1 Kiev. And they may still be accessible on internet. I don't know what the status of internet within the Ukraine is at the moment. All I can say is that all but one of the Ukrainian web SDRs has disappeared. What a week. Over to Jason, KC5HWB, I should say, and he runs a YouTube channel called Ham Radio 2.0. So it's well worth your while having a look at Ham Radio 2.0. This is VK3AML with a test transmission with some unexpected material on the Ukraine emerging disaster and the ham radio response to it. KC5HWB.
Most people are probably aware of the Russian invasion of Ukraine over the last 24 to 48 hours. And today we're going to talk about the ham radio response to that. Now, I'm not going to get political. I'm not going to start pointing fingers. I'm not going to say anything that might be disruptive. But I'm going to share information because on this channel we do reviews, news, and how-tos. So this is news in the world of amateur radio today as response to the Russian-Ukraine situation. Check this out.
Shut up and sit down.
Ham Radio 2.0, thanks for joining the channel today. My name's Jason, I'm KC5HWB. So I've been reading a lot online about amateur radio response to the current situation in the Ukraine, mostly in the Ukraine. And we feel for all the ham radio operators in the Ukraine, they've been told to shut down operations. They're not allowed to use their amateur radios during this time. The government has come in and told them, hey, you can't use your ham radio for personal use or for public use or something like that. So I found a news article a minute ago. I'll share that with you in a minute. And it's a little bit, I guess it's a little bit strange, but in the same way it's kind of not strange. Let me just say this without getting too deep into this. Just be thankful for the privileges we have in the United States. Be thankful for the freedoms we have in the United States. Not everyone enjoys those kinds of freedoms. And I'm just going to leave that there. So over the course of the last 24 to 48 hours, Russia invaded Ukraine, and we can't help but feel, what's the word I'm looking for? Not sorry for, but we can't but feel compassion for those in the Ukraine. There's several good ham radio companies, ham radio manufacturing companies in the Ukraine, including Rig Expert. Been doing a lot of videos on Rig Expert here lately on my channel, and you've seen some of those around the internet, around YouTube as well. So Rig Expert is based out of Ukraine. And they issued a statement earlier today. Well, I got it earlier today, and I'm going to read it to you here in just a minute. Added on top of all that, I can't help but feel a little bit of sorrow or perhaps concern for those companies that are actually in Russia. These will include Lab 599 and Expert Electronics, who make the popular Sun SDR HF ham radios. So, as has happened with wars in the past, you know, a lot of times the Russian people are not responsible for what their government does. So don't blame the Russian people for this skirmish, because I don't know very many people in Russia, but the 2 or 3 that I've traded emails with are very much against what is happening over there, very much against their country invading the Ukraine. So whether you agree with that or not, don't blame the Russian people for it, because it's really kind of out of their hands. So the first thing I'm going to share with you is an article that I found on the ARRL website. And it basically just states that the amateur radio in Ukraine ordered off the air in state of emergency. This was posted on the 24th. I'm recording this video on the 25th. I'll probably post it later today, but if not, first thing in the morning, but probably later today. We'll see. A state of emergency has been declared in the Ukraine just prior to the Russian military invasion. Among other things, on February 24th, a decree from President Zelensky, I'm not going to try to say his first name, will remain in effect for at least 30 days. It's published on the website of the Verkhovna Rada, I'm saying that wrong, I'm sure, Ukraine's unicameral legislative body. A state of emergency includes regulation of TV and radio activities and a ban on the operation of amateur radio transmitters for personal and collective use. So, yeah, so they got banned from using ham radio in the Ukraine. So we're not going to hear anything, at least not legally, we're not going to hear anything out of the Ukraine for a while. But you guys stay safe over there. I don't know if you have access to YouTube. I don't know if you can, if you're watching this video right now, if you've watched other videos on YouTube, if you're in the Ukraine or around that area and can understand English, then please stay safe over there. We are all over here thinking about you, rest assured. So the other article I found was on Southgate Amateur Radio News, and this is about Poland's radio amateurs. Now, hats off to the Polish amateur radio societies, because they're members of the Poland's National Amateur Radio Society, PZK. Polski, I'm not going to even try to say that. There's no way. PZK, Papa Zulu Kilo, that's how I'm saying that. Are providing WinLink email communications on the 160, 80, and 20 meter bands. A post on the Polish Amateur Radio Union on Facebook reads, "Dear ham radio operators, in the face of the latest threat in our region and possibility of an upcoming wave of refugees, with over 2 million, I think that means, already living in Poland, we would like to remind you that we are at your disposal. If you're a licensed amateur radio operator, you can send information by email to your relatives in Poland or emergency services via WinLink system, which works over the HF bands independently of access in the local ICT infrastructure, and goes winlink.org/WinLink Express, which is the software that is used for WinLink. So amateur radio to the rescue once again. We advise you download the software, install it, and check its operation. Polish WinLink nodes are QRV on 160, 80, and 20 meters. SR5 WLK is 3595.5. SR3 WLK is 14.11. And SP3 IEW is 1.865. All on the HF amateur radio band. So that's pretty cool that Poland is taking a step up for refugees and wanting to support the ham radio community in that regard. So hats off to the Polish amateur radio operators over there. They're so willing to send messages in and out of the area for loved ones in communications. Something I found, so I've received a couple of emails from people overseas, and I'm a member of some I don't get on Facebook a whole lot, but I'm a member of some Facebook groups, and these groups are posting to their Facebook groups. So the one that Rig Expert right now, which again, Rig Expert is in the Ukraine. They are in the country that's currently being invaded. They are saying right now that contrary to all our hopes, aggression from the northern neighbor has reached its maximum point. As of today, we've been subjected to an open, full-scale military invasion. Right now, we're receiving dozens of letters of support from partners worldwide. These words give us hope and strength. According to previously developed plans, we will do everything possible to ensure the entire operation of our business. So pray for the Ukraine. Make sure those guys are in your thoughts and prayers. If prayer is a part of your life, being sure to include them with that for sure. But that comes directly from Rig Expert Ukraine. Another one, now this one's kind of from the other side of the fence. Well, another location. I shouldn't say the other side of the fence, but another location. But this one's from Lab 599, who is in Russia. We deeply regret what is happening. We all hoped that such madness could not happen in the modern world. The Lab 599 company is a team of radio amateurs and people who are passionate about their work. We are categorically against the aggression in any of its manifestations. We produce peaceful products and think the slogan "Made for Peace" will become the slogan of our company. Regarding the current state of affairs, the team continues to fulfill contractual obligations to partners. We provide service and warranty services, and we will continue firmware support. We thank everyone who's understanding the situation. Sincerely, hopefully the madness will end soon. So hats off to, once again, Russian citizens and civilians and companies located in that country that have absolutely nothing to do with what's going on with what the actions of their own government. So once again, be thankful we live in the United States. And to those, all of you who live outside of the United States, you guys stay safe out there. There's a lot of really great countries on the planet. I'm not trying to say anything about my country is better than yours. That's not what I mean. What I mean is just enjoy the freedoms that we all have outside of the countries that are experiencing this current set of tragedies. So the last thing I'm going to share is, and this one I found very strange, but we'll go ahead and share it anyway. So on RTLSDR.com, I found a post, and this was also put up yesterday on February 24th. Russian bomber HF activity, amateur radio SDR hobbyist warning again. Now, this was not a story I'd heard before, so anybody who has more details in this story, please comment below. With Russian missiles now falling on the Ukraine, it seems that the worst has occurred and a full-scale invasion has started. We wish for the safety of the Ukrainian citizens, and to that end, we wanted to reiterate our safety warning to all SDR owners and amateur radio operators in the Ukraine that we put out 3 weeks ago. Please remember that last year, a Crimean resident was arrested and currently imprisoned by Russian forces for using RTL-SDR and scanner radios to listen to the air band. Crimea was a previous territory in the Ukraine annexed by Russian forces in 2014. Along with the Ukraine's declared state of emergency, one of the conditions is that all transmitting radio amateur activities must cease. We would also like to strongly recommend ceasing any public-facing receiving activities, including ADSB and web SDR. So, wow, once again, they put someone in prison for using RTL-SDR, which is basically transmitting or broadcasting HF shortwave listening frequencies over the internet. Be thankful that you live in the United States. I'm going to say that again. So you guys in Canada, be thankful. You guys in South America, be thankful. Certain parts of it anyway. So so what do you think? What other stories have you heard? What other information do you have? Like I said, be sure that Rig Expert, Lab 599, Expert Electronics, and other companies I might not have mentioned today that are located in both Russia and the Ukraine are in your thoughts and prayers. If you're a praying person, be sure they're in your prayers. And hopefully this disruption of peace in the part of Europe where it's happening, hopefully this will not last very long, and hopefully it will be over very soon. And we all pray for a regard for human life and safety of human life, and as little loss of life as possible, possibly none. We're going to pray for no loss of human life whatsoever. But we as ham radio operators have a duty to keep relations, foreign and worldwide relations, open and flowing and peaceful relations and negotiations throughout, and just keep the lines of communications open and information flowing into and out of the areas of turmoil for those that are involved in the turmoil but are caught up in it but not really involved in it. So go out there today and reach out to people you may know in the area. Send them an email via WinLink. Send them a message. Send them a text message. Pick up your phone and call them if that's still working in the area, and tell them you're thinking about them. And if anything that they need, please provide it if you can. So link any other articles. All the articles I've linked today will be in the description below. Link anything else you might see. Let me know what else you've heard. And maybe we'll do another video on this again in a few days or next week. 73 guys, and stay safe out there.
Jason, KC5HWB, and he runs a YouTube channel. Gosh, look at my hair, it's standing on end. I suppose that's appropriate to the week. Jason, KC5HWB, he runs a YouTube channel which is well worthy of your looking in, called Ham Radio 2.0. That's a channel called Ham Radio 2.0, and its creator Jason, KC5HWB. This is VK3 Alpha Mike Lima with a very non-standard Saturday night session. And what Jason was saying there about being appreciative of being in a country where perhaps the politics are sometimes foolish, and the characters in it not credible, but at least we have the choice of those characters, and if we have a bad government, we're to blame for it, not some distant, unreachable, unelectable group. Let's thank Providence for our remoteness from Europe, and for our multiculturalism, and for our freedom. And that brings me to something that'll probably raise the eyebrows of a few old Mother Grundys. I'm going to play some music. Now, this is just as a test. It's not intended as entertainment. However, it is intended to draw your attention to the emotive feelings of what it means to be an Australian. So I'm going to play a very old film clip of perhaps the best baritone that Australia produced in the first half of the 20th century. He's a man named Peter Dawson. He was born in Adelaide in 1882, died in 1961. And he's singing a song which I think, under the present circumstances, will bring a tear to the eye. Peter Dawson.
Visiting New Zealand for his 5th concert tour is the Australian-based baritone Peter Dawson. He's looking forward to another 3 months here, and this evening he's entertaining some of his Wellington friends. For them, he's going to sing an old favourite.
Once a jolly swagman camped by a billabong under the shade of a coolabah tree, and he sang as he watched and waited till his billy boiled. you'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, you'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. And he sang as he watched and waited till his belly boiled. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Down came a jumbuck to drink at that billabong. Up jumped the swagman and grabbed him with glee. And he sang as he shoved that jumbuck in his tucker bag. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, you'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. And he sang as he shoved that jumbuck in his tucker bag. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Up rode the squatter, mounted on his thoroughbred. Up came the troopers, 1, 2, 3. Where's the jolly jumbuck you got in your tucker bag? You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, you'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Where's the jolly jumbuck you got in your tucker bag? You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Up jumped the swagman and sprang into that billabong. You'll never take me alive, said he. And his ghost may be heard as you pass by that billabong. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, you'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. And his ghost may be heard as you pass by that billabong. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me.
Peter Dawson. His career began with wax cylinders in 1904, finished with stereo in 1955. An extraordinarily long career, and probably cut more records than any other vocal artist in the first half of the 20th century, Peter Dawson. The New Zealand Film Archives has come up trumps with quite a few historical pieces of film related to the history of communications, particularly in the period 1940s and 50s, and I've strung a few of these together from very obscure sections of films, New Zealand government films mostly, that cover this period, including their equivalent of our beam wireless stations that used to be, in Melbourne's case, at Balan and Deer Park, at Fiskville to be precise. The Fiskville OTC station, shortwave to England, closed in 1971, but it was part of a vast worldwide HF network. In the case of New Zealand, they had two stations, one for receiving, one for transmitting, just outside Wellington, one called Makara Radio, which was 12 miles out of Wellington, was the receiving side, and just after the war they completed the transmitter station, beam wireless station, at Himatangi, which is also within Kui of Wellington. So here are the films related to that. New Zealand communications, historical stuff from the 1940s and 50s.
12 miles from Wellington is the Post and Telegraph Department's new radio station, officially and internationally known as Makara Radio. With 1,400 acres around it and high above the sea, this station is well placed as the receiving centre for New Zealand's communications with the outside world. For first-class reception, there must be top-notch servicing, and that includes the aerials. After the war, when radio telephone communications are restored with the rest of the world, these parallel aerials will receive the Sydney calls. A line drawn at right angles through them passes right through Sydney. To house the men of Makara Radio, a small village has been built. Though rather far from town, these modern state houses are certainly popular. for it's not everybody who can find such a comfortable home at the present time. This attractive radio village is receiving centre for New Zealand communications services.
So, is the line to London free? Well, switch me on to the Postmaster General's office in London. He'll be waiting to receive a call.
Plugged through by the Wellington Overseas Telephone Exchange, this call by the Honourable W.J. Broadfoot signals the successful completion of the 12,000 miles direct radio circuit from Himatangi to London, a link which will unite the Empire yet more closely when the Queen broadcasts on Christmas Day.
Hello, Wellington. Hello, London. Is Mr. Broadfoot ready?
Yes.
I see. Lord Delaware's waiting. Will you go? Get him, please.
Well, Mr. Postmaster General, it gives me a lot of pleasure to talk to you over this new circuit, the longest in the world. And in doing so, to extend you greetings from our staff in New Zealand to the staff under your control. This new circuit means a lot to us, as up till now we have had to rely on Australia to give us radio communication with the home country. I am grateful to Australia for that, but the wide-felt wish here has been that because of the importance of our ties with the mother country, we need a direct link.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Broadfoot, for what you've said. I don't think I need say how glad I am to be taking part with you in the first direct radio telephone call over the new circuit between our two countries. This really is a very great day in the history of Commonwealth communications.
A crowd of several hundred, among them Mr. Broadfoot himself, listens to a recorded version of the conversation at the official opening of Himatangi radio station. Lord Delaware concluded,
The opening of Himatangi means that from now on there will be direct telephone and telegraph circuits between us. It also means, as you've said, that we shall have much better services to other members of the Commonwealth, and this does all help to strengthen the ties which bind us all so closely together.
A photo of Miss New Zealand finalists is selected by Post and Telegraph engineers for test transmission of the new radio photo service. Placed on a revolving drum in the machine, the photo is scanned by a pinpoint of light. The variations in the reflections from this create fluctuating electric currents. Conversely, photos are received by the variations in the light exposing a negative on the drum. Shortwave radio through Melbourne is the link with London. Photos are received at the Post and Telegraph radio station at Macra and amplified to be sent on to the Wellington Post Office where ordinary photographic negative is exposed. Prints are made in the usual way. Inaugurated on the date of the royal wedding, the service makes photographs of the event available for reproduction in New Zealand 2.5 hours after the click of the camera shutter in London. The Post and Telegraph Department provides another service keeping New Zealand abreast of world developments.
But the operator said as soon as there was a line fixed, he'd put me through. No, not long. But I was very worried about you. The headlines here are full of it. It's a big thing to ring you, but it's worth it to know that you're all safe.
The call is waiting in box 2, sir.
Oh, thanks.
Yes, please.
The whole of the post office is normally under varying degrees of pressure, and anything from flood to fancy can measurably increase this pressure on any of our sections: telephone, telegraph, radio or postal. For instance, when you send a telegram, you start a series of activities which are only made possible by a vast expenditure on delicate equipment, so perfected as to make the operation practically automatic. The transmission of inland and overseas messages is initially governed by recording variously combined perforations on a paper tape, the perforations allowing otherwise opposed pecker levers to come through and make contact. The message is in this way transmitted to Himatangi, where it's retransmitted overseas. Himatangi provides direct speech and telegraph contact with all overseas countries, at the same time supplementing the existing submarine cable service. Himatangi transmits, Macra receives. High on a hill overlooking the Tasman, Macra is in constant touch with the outside world. Where Himatangi speaks, Macra listens, needing the same infinite care and attention to detail.
How's London circuit, Ralph? Oh, we're just checking, see him.
270 in London. This is station ZLZ31 in Wellington calling. Hello, London.
Hello, London. Would you assign my serial in Nelly 1452? Hello, Mr. Gordon. Mr. Peters calling you from Wellington. Go ahead now, please.
Hello, Alan. How are you? Yes, I can hear you fine. We haven't had any letter from you. Oh, yes, should be good for all calls, isn't it, George? Yes.
Very good. It's all a question of knowing what to listen for. For instance, photographs can sound very odd indeed when being transmitted. Practically any facsimile can be radio transmitted: signature, fingerprint, document, as well as the more familiar hot news photograph in the morning paper.
Hello, Wellington from Melbourne. Picture finished now.
Okay, thank you, Melbourne. Stand by for a report, please. That's all right. What's your story? Coming over the wire from London now. Harry here will look after it.
The collecting, integrating and dispersal of news from all parts of the world makes such calls on the Post Office Department as to justify direct press association facilities over a special radio network, which, with the help of the humble mail service, brings the world to the door of even the most isolated settler. Most people have their mail delivered once a day, but there are still many isolated communities for which Mail Day is a day to look forward to. Whether the mail comes by van, by plane or by steamer, it's sure of a warm reception.
George.
That's a better end. The mail must go through.
Hope my parcel comes. Thank you. A bill. Oh.
You got it here this week, Jenny?
Oh,
Come on, mate. You've been mail. Area Farms, another window.
That's
Good.
secret.
Hey,
It looks like mine down there.
Oh, gee. Another Area Farms.
Trouble is we get too many of these.
Or you can pass that over onto somebody else.
Maybe it's mine.
Well, that's straight. There's a telegram.
You think
Over there for your money or a telegram.
I'll be over just after lunch. Thank you.
Great Barrier Island is a fair distance from the mainland, but everyone's on the phone and all they have to do is to give the crank an extra long ring and a radio automatically cuts in and connects them to the Auckland Exchange.
Hello, Auckland. It's Port Fitzroy here. May I have Wellington, please? 48698. And what delay is there on the Wellington line?
In fact, with radio telephony, what it is today, no person is ever really isolated. He merely lives on a street that's rather longer than most.
Thank you. Would you sign there, please? Thank you. How's Joe, Mrs. Cooper? Very well indeed. He's at Covia and enjoying himself very much there. I sent him a parcel out by the boat this morning.
ZLPV, ZLPV, this is Zebra Mike Nanking, Zebra Mike Nanking to ZLPV. How do you read, please, over?
ZMNK Endeavour, ZLPV QV Island answering, reading loud and clear, Captain, over.
ZLPV, this is Roger Mike Nanking answering. Receiving you loud and clear, Bob. We'll be there in 2 hours' time.
The whole pattern of post office activities is one of interwoven facilities. Perhaps interlinked would be a better word to use, for there's constant link between telephone, telegraph, radio and cable. Service is in continuous operation over land, over seas and out onto the sea itself. Marine radio beacons operating from such lighthouses as Cuvier help to guard ships against danger, at the same time keeping in touch with shore installation and reporting weather conditions for the Meteorological Office, never breaking the link that binds this isolated rock to the mainland.
Cuvier Island from Auckland Radio, good afternoon. Go ahead, please.
Cuvier back to Auckland, good afternoon. Here's the weather. 1500, 0902. 23 X-ray, double X-ray. How's that, please, over?
Hello, Cuvier Island from Auckland Radio. Your weather received, thanks. Is there anything I can do for you? Over.
Cuvier back, yes. I'd like you to ring Franklin's for me, please, if you would, and ask them to put a bag of potatoes on this week's boat for me, please, over.
Cuvier from Auckland. Yes, I'll do that. Thanks very much. Cheerio.
Roger, Auckland. Thanks a lot. Cheers now.
It's in the tolls section that the Post Office Department experiences the greatest pressure. To meet this ever-increasing demand, multi-channel cables, called coaxial cables, are being introduced. One of these cables is being laid between Auckland and Hamilton. Assisted by repeater stations erected at various intervals, coaxial cables are able to carry 960 conversations at one time and may eventually replace the pole and wire technique of more leisurely days. Newest of post office facilities to be made available to the public is the mobile radio telephone, which is at present being used by ambulances, consumer service organizations and taxis. Whether in remote area or crowded city, the accent is always on service, a service that affects the lives of all of us who want to keep in touch.
They don't make them like that anymore. And many thanks to the to Archives New Zealand for the usage of those films. Archives New Zealand runs a YouTube channel. Great amount of material on it, including their, I think they're called Picture Parade, a government-based advertising scheme aimed at pushing New Zealand industries via newsreel style films, of which we've taken a few extracts there relating to communications. This is VK3AML with a regular Saturday night transmission, and I see there's 10 minutes to go before live conversation time. So I'll take you to the shack of a prominent YouTube channel operator, that is VK5HWB, and he'll take you for a guided tour of his Radio Shack. VK5HWB, well worth having a look at his channel too. Gradually as time goes on, I'm finding the channels of prominent video enthusiasts among the ham radio clique, and 5STU incidentally has an exemplary shack from the point of view of audio quality. VK5STU.
Hey guys, thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to give you a quick run through of my new shack now that it's all set up and ready to go, and maybe we'll find out what all this stuff's all about. Alright, hope you enjoy.
purposely...
Okay, two radios in use here at the shack. The FT847 on the top there, and the FT1000MP on the bottom, which is the main rig I use for contesting, rag chewing, and anything here at the QTH. Beautiful rig, sounds great on transmit and receive. Very ergonomically nice to use. Has all but one of the optional filters fitted, and is effectively two radios in one, really. So a really nice rig to use, very reliable, heavy duty, and just feels really nice to use. The 847 I use primarily for 2 meters, 70 centimeters, and for all of my digital modes through Signalink USB. So I don't really take advantage of all the features on the radio at all. But once again, nice rig, very reliable, very easy to use. Both of these are connected to an end-fed antenna, 10 through 80 meters, and switched through that rotary switch there with the auto tuner, which I really need to use. And the 847 and the tuner are powered by the 23 amp power supply there, which I think everyone's got one of, and just an airband scanner there for good fun. The microphones I use here, Heil PR40, which is hanging off an articulated boom arm there, which is really handy to have. Let you move it around wherever you want to and position it nicely. And also have a Heil ProSet headset, which I use for heavy duty contesting and for other things as well. That's got a really nice sound, very heavy, almost feels like a motorbike helmet when you've got it on, but really nice. Both of those connected into the Yamaha 16 channel mixer there, which has the microphone preamps built into it. Complete overkill, this mixer, but I got it at exactly the right price, and so I snapped it up while I was there. Effectively everything audio, both from the microphones and also all of the receive audio from the rigs and the scanner, come into this, and they can be routed anywhere at any time. So turn a dial, move a slider, and you can move the audio around wherever you want. Headphones, speakers, different microphones to different radios. Alright, up the top here we have the stereographic equalizer, which comes on the receive side of things, and I can adjust the sliders there to effectively pull out the audio passband from what I'm receiving, so it really helps pull signals out of the noise there. And that comes out of the mixer, goes through the equalizer, then back into the mixer. On the microphone side of things, we come out of the mixer preamps and then into a noise gate, which is the first thing in the chain there. Effectively, it helps reduce background noise when there's pauses in audio, so you're not getting a traffic noise or anything like that. From there, we go into a parametric equalizer, which is a little bit more complicated than a graphic equalizer. We can set the center frequency, the width of the filter, and the boost and the cut. So it takes a bit to get set up, but once you've got it dialed into your particular voice characteristics, it sounds really nice. And out of there, we then go into an audio compressor, which most of us will probably be familiar with, so nothing particularly special there, but just lets me adjust all of the parameters as I need for each microphone. The PR40 goes down the left-hand channels, and the headsets go down the right-hand channels. Just makes it nice and easy. Audio out of the mixer goes either into a set of headphones or into a set of studio monitors there. They're just a set of powered monitors. Alright, well that was the shack. Hope you found it interesting. If you ever catch up with me on air and we have a bit of a QSO, then chances are it'll either be from here or from a park or a soda summit somewhere. Alright, thanks for watching. Next few weeks I'll hopefully have another video out where I'll be reviewing a couple of different telescopic fiberglass masts that I use when I'm out portable. So stay tuned for that one. If you haven't already, please subscribe. That certainly lets me know that people are out there and interested, and hopefully you'll get a notification to let you know when the next video comes out. Alright, cheers and 7-3 for now.
VK5HWB, a prominent YouTube clip maker who's well worth having a look for. This is VK3 Alpha Mike Lima with the regular Saturday night test transmission. And now at 10:57, in about 3 minutes' time, we'll be opening up for QSOs, if anyone's about. Hopefully the stuff on Ukraine wasn't too depressing. I find it interesting that so much of the world supports the plight of those that are affected through no fault of their own on both sides of the conflict negatively. And it crossed my mind that while all of this talk has been going on about crushing the economy of Russia, that won't affect Putin so much, it'll affect the people, and God knows some of those are scratching by as it is. Still, something's got to be done, and short of starting a nuclear war, what can one do? What can one do? I suppose the best we can do at the moment is to use whatever skills we have, in this case amateur radio, for the benefit of those who are badly affected if we possibly can. Listen and, if necessary, act. If you want to look in on the video side of this, although you will only see an old wrinkly bloke with a glass of dark grape juice. It's not wine, folks. I don't drink wine at this time of the night, otherwise I'd go right to sleep in front of the microphone. I used to find that wine was a stimulant when I was younger. Now I find it's a good way of knocking yourself out. So, at 10:59, the magic witching hour, we now go over to the receiver to see who's about for a QSO. I have to change my listening across to the mixer so that I can hear the output of the radio. I just have to raise the level on that and switch that from speaker to mixer. Make sure the levels are right. Okay, this is VK3AML calling CQ on 147.475. Do we have anybody listening out there? VK3 Alpha Mike Lima listening.
VK3ACZ.
Acknowledging 3ACZ. Okay, Peter. How's your week been? And hopefully you haven't had any friends that have been adversely affected by the Ukraine situation. VK3ACZ with a pause in case anybody else would like to call in. VK3AML.
VK3AML, VK3ACZ returning. Nothing heard there, Chris. Good evening, Chris and everybody. It's been a good week. I think I'm going to appreciate the mask restrictions coming down just a little bit, although funny it works the other way. I feel like I'm naked, feel like there's something wrong when I walk into somewhere and I'm not wearing the mask all of a sudden. But I suppose we have the option of maintaining it. Anyway, on to tonight's broadcast. I only came in at about 1:15 because I'd just got back from playing portable radio, and propagation was very, very good, which kept me out there longer than I wanted to. But I heard Jason, KC5HWB, his little broadcast was quite telling. Funny, I worked one Russian station this afternoon on 20 metres. He was in Vladivostok though, so that's over in the Asiatic side. And silly me, I'd been hoping to hear from some Ukrainians perhaps, so that I could give them a little bit of verbal moral support, and of course there weren't any. Little did I know though that amateur radio has been banned there, so thanks for letting me know about that. And absolutely priceless, that New Zealand Archives film. Loved seeing the antenna systems, loved the voices, printing the photograph, all that. Oh, fantastic stuff there, Chris. But yes, I guess the elephant in the room there is the situation over in Europe. It's just so funny that 20 metres has been absolutely fantastic today. I've worked stations all over Europe, Romania, Italy, Israel, Greece, Bulgaria, Russia, France, Netherlands, England, Spain. I've been around a lot. It was just unbelievable, and mainly 5x9 both-way contacts. it was almost possible to forget the dire situation in that part of the world. But anyway, so thank you for bringing that to us. We must not be complacent. Too nervous? Well, I don't know what we can do, but it would have been great to have our Ukrainian brothers on to give them a bit of moral support. I'm sure you'd agree with that sentiment, even though it's not possible. Anyway, enough for the very first over. Chris, hope your week's been good as well. VK3AML, VK3ACZ.
No other breakers. We're down to one. Oh, mind you, that's quality, not quantity. So I'm not putting you down, Peter. Not for a moment. It's been a roller coaster week for me because on Wednesday, Prue, my wife, had her major spinal surgery, lumbar spine. She has a problem with bone spurs that in this case were growing inwards towards the spinal cord and cutting off the nerve control and feeling for the left leg. All she was getting was pain, and she couldn't walk more than 10 metres. Well, they've had the spinal surgery, inserted a plate between two vertebrae, and it went extremely well. It surprises me, but she was up with the physio walking short distances around the ward 48 hours after the operation. The only trouble is that as the pinched nerves come back online, quite a bit of pain, but they have that under control. She's in Epworth Eastern, about to be moved to Epworth Camberwell, which is corner of Burke Road and Tarak Road. So a lot of trepidation up to Wednesday, and then a huge amount of relief following. But then, of course, the day that she was operated on was also the day of the invasion of Ukraine. I was about to say the Ukraine, but apparently that's a Russian term, and Ukrainians hate it. They are Ukraine, not the Ukraine. The Ukraine was a region of old Russia, of old USSR, I should say. So, yeah. From major surgery to World War. I just wonder where we can go from there. VK3ACZ with a pause, VK3AML.
VK3AML. I nearly went to say in the group. VK3ACZ. Where's Dave when you need him? I think he might have said something about being missing in action tonight. And, well, Chris, it sounds like you and Prue have been through the wars this week. So I think what I experienced with my kids when they were ill was that it was far worse than being unwell yourself. Watching somebody else go through it and not really being able to do much except sit beside them. And I'm hoping that the COVID regulations didn't mean that you weren't allowed to be close to her whenever you desired to be. Please tell me that you were able to be by her side at all times. One of the worst things about the COVID situation, I think, is me, grumbling about wearing masks and all the other necessary stuff that we've had. But no, I can't think of anything worse than not being beside the loved one. So anyway, I'm relieved and pleased to hear that things are progressing well, and hopefully before too long she'll be back to her usual jolly self. I wish I could say more to comfort you in that situation now, but yes, we won't say the Ukraine. I felt very uncomfortable each time the media reported Putin's claims that he was not going to invade, and shades of Barbarossa, or actually shades of the treaty that Hitler had with Stalin before that. Trust me, I won't invade. Oh boy. Yes, I think we all knew it was inevitable. We just didn't know the timing. So slowly trying to get used to the shock of it all, and one can hope that it'll be over very soon, but not just over, but over in a way that minimises suffering and has some sort of positive resolution. Not sure where that's going to come from, but back to you, Chris. VK3AML, VK3ACZ.
Just the two of us. VK3ACZ, VK3AML. Yeah, well, Prue's back. Her morale since the operation has been extremely good, just to the point where she was on the phone nagging me about taking the bins out on the correct day a couple of days ago. So she's back on top of things in that respect. But yeah, I can't visit. It was only under the strictest supervision that I could go in with her for her admission to hospital on Wednesday morning, and that's the last time I saw her. I've basically been running a solo operation here at home. The only visitor I've had actually in the time from then to now has been Michael, VK3EMB, and we did a trip down to Bunnings, the hardware store, to pick up a sconce light that had gone wonky in our hallway here. The original one that went wonky was one of those very cheap ones, LED one, with an external power supply voltage dropper that was the size of a matchbox and put out broadband noise whenever it was switched on. It was the last of the old noisy ones, so I was very glad to stick a new one into the hall, and have found that when you switch it on you can't detect any difference on HF. That's a great change. Just addressing some of the questions that I see on the... Wow, there's been a lot of discussion on the text at the side of my web chat, the live stream tonight. Incidentally, if anybody wants to look in, just Google VK3AML 26 February 2022. A lot of people talking about the, if you'll pardon the expression, the shit hitting the fan with politics this week, much of which I don't want to relate on the air. Jared Quinn from Sydney is talking about his local radio club, the Waverley Radio Club, being continuously licensed since 1919 and suspended operations for World War II. I think Amateur Radio magazine continued through the war, but nobody was allowed to transmit. The magazine was just to keep the people who are enthusiasts in that area together. Who were the first couple that I showed? Well, what you missed, apparently, Peter, was that I made a compilation of vlogs, video logs, that were made by people trapped in the Ukraine with the advance of the Russian troops. And the first one was a couple, a young couple, Michael Balashek and his wife Victoria, who were caught in their apartment in Kiev, the capital of the Ukraine, as the Russians started to invade. They filled their car up with petrol and headed for the Hungarian border. There is a short Hungarian border with the Ukraine, and apparently the people in the west part of the Ukraine have been banding together. Anybody who has a spare room or a spare floor space between the capital and the border is offering to billet people who have travelled all day in their cars and need a place to sleep. It's winter over there. It's very difficult to sleep anywhere in the open, of course. So one can't help but admire the level of empathy, the degree of sympathy for these people who are suffering, and those who are out in the country with space pitching in where they can, which makes me feel that we should be pitching in wherever we can as amateurs, having the equipment that we have, being able to speak across the world, not necessarily to the Ukraine itself, but to displaced persons in Poland, Romania, Hungary, all of those countries. And there'll be an awful lot of them displaced. I believe 100,000 have made the trek out of Ukraine in the last 2 days. You can imagine what the border crossings must look like and how much paperwork is being gone through. the traffic jams. Some people actually have walked to the border. I've not seen news items like this since newsreels of displaced people in 1945 were shot. And that was 9 years before my birth. VK3ACZ. Hopefully with a group, if anybody else is about, VK3AML.
VK3 Zulu Sugar Charlie.
Acknowledging VK3ZSC. Okay. I'll hand it to Peter first and then hand it to you. VK3, thank you for that. VK3ACZ to take VK3AML.
Yeah, VK3AML in the group now, VK3ACZ. And that's Graham down there. I think he's in Oakley, 3ZSC. I hear him calling on 10 metres occasionally, just on the edge of the noise because we're too close. I have a question for you, Chris. With the New Zealand archive broadcast, one or two of the signals there sounded like you were actually hearing sideband, but a lot of the others sound like a speaker with somebody in the next room. I'm wondering if that was your perception or whether everything appeared to be legit. I'm just wondering about that, whether it was made up for the sake of the movie. Not that I'm complaining. I was very, very impressed and enjoyed it immensely, but nothing more than looking at the antennas, and I would have liked to have freeze frame to try and figure out how that all worked, as I often do whenever I look at radio. Used to look at Radio Australia's big spider web set up there. I call it a spider web, but you know what I mean. Anyway, I'll put it back to you so that you can bring Graham in. VK3AML in the group, VK3ACZ.
Yeah, VK3ACZ, VK3AML. What you were hearing there, as far as I had to listen to that myself a few times off that track, I was curious about that. And what it sounds like is speech inversion. In the old days, they used to transmit the sideband with the audio inverted, high frequencies becoming low, low frequencies becoming high, like resolving a sideband signal on the wrong sideband. The equipment to decode that stuff at the time, 1947 or whatever it was fairly rare. And when they were monitoring at the transmitting station, I think it was law that the technicians had to listen to the inverted signal for quality, not the actual phone call. Telecommunications were far more sacrosanct in those days. So it's over to Graham in Oakley. VK3ZSC, how are you, sir? VK3AML.
VK3AML on the group. This is VK3ZSC. Actually, I'm in Donvale, not in Oakley. Yes, I'm receiving you very well, Chris. 5 and 9 well and truly. Booming in. However, Peter is a bit noisy. I'm not sure where Peter is. I've looked up Chris's QRZ page, but I haven't got round to looking at Peter's yet. So all very interesting. I don't want to talk about Ukraine. I'm afraid I've heard too much already. Very depressing and frightening. For some reason, when the people who are being bombed and destroyed look like us, it's a bit different to when they... It's worse than when they... this is probably a terrible thing to say, but it's... when people look like us, it makes it feel a lot closer to home than when people are wearing different types of clothing or different colour or whatever they may be. I don't mean to sound racist, but there we go. Yes, but anyway, enough of Ukraine. Peter, Chris. I actually heard you about a week ago. I think it might have been last Sunday night. You were talking to a fellow over in Warrandyte. Can't think of his name. Yes, David, 3ECG. I heard you talking to him I think it was last Sunday, and then I stumbled across you again tonight. I have no idea what your broadcast was all about. Like I said, I just stumbled onto it towards the end of the broadcast. It must have been about 10 to 11. I stumbled across it, and I'm wondering what it's all about. I presume that there's some video that goes with it somehow or other. And another thing that interests me too is your wife's operation, because my wife is also having spinal surgery on next Tuesday at Baringal Hospital. So there you go. I've had personal experience with Epworth Eastern, and I was very happy with it. I hope your wife is too. But this time my wife's going to Baringal next Tuesday. However, in her case, it's cervical vertebrae have been displaced. When you see the X-ray, there's quite a discontinuity in the edge of the spinal cord, or spinal column, I should say. And this apparently there's a danger that this could go further and cause paraplegia or even quadriplegia. So she's having that fixed, we hope, on Thursday. It's already been, or Tuesday I should say, it's already been deferred twice. So there we go. So I'll put it back to Chris for now, and so VK3AML in the group. This is VK3ZSC.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. VK3ZSC, VK3AML. Well, the situation with this transmission, every Saturday night, 9:30 p.m. on this frequency for audio, and accompanying video on YouTube live stream, which you find by Googling a phrase, the phrase being VK3AML 26 February 2022 on YouTube. I run documentary videos. Sometimes I visit people's places. We talk about their Radio Shacks. The audio goes out on ham radio, but the audio and the video go out on the YouTube live stream. And usually the audio means something on its own. It can be taken either way. The clips that I choose to transmit, it's mostly the speech that conveys the information. The audio, the video is mostly just an added extra. But now that we can do it so easily and it costs nothing on top of our normal internet charges, I might as well transmit audio with the video. Dave from Warrandyte's an interesting character. He's been into forensics for a very long time, coroner, and there is nothing about a dead body that he doesn't know. And quite a few other areas like chemical, chemistry and all of that. Very interesting character. It's a pity he's not with us tonight. The problem that my wife has, how can I describe it? She has a condition called DISH, diffuse idiopathic skeletal hypertrophy. It's basically the opposite of osteoporosis, which is a reduction of bone density. Her bones are growing, and they're growing spurs, specifically spurs along the spine, which means that her spine is now fused. The problem with the external spurs is only slight discomfort. The problem with spurs that grow inwards towards the spine can be drastic, and she's only had one of those, fortunately, and just had it removed by a surgeon in a major operation which involved the fitting of a plate between two vertebrae to push them apart, and the unpinching of the spinal cord. And as the pinched nerves kick back into activity, of course, there's quite a bit of pain involved with that, so she's under a bit of pain control and a lot of physiotherapy. The unfortunate thing is that while she's in hospital, at the moment the COVID regulations are such that I can't visit, so we speak on the phone 2 or 3 times a day, particularly when she wants me to put the garbage out. She reminds me. But a bit of remote control, but I love her for all that. Actually, the thing that I'm finding difficult is that I've been so used to somebody sleeping in the bed beside me that I find myself slowly dropping off to sleep and reaching for the other body that for the last 29 years has been there. And when I feel in my semi-sleeping state that there's nobody there, I suddenly jerk awake. And so I'm getting something like 4 hours sleep a night, which is not really enough, and I can feel it building up as a need. Anyway, I hope that just gives the description of what's going on. My wife has a condition called DISH and has had to have some fairly serious spinal surgery for it, for which we've been bracing ourselves for months. But finally it went through, and it went perfectly. So round to Peter, VK3ACZ, VK3AML. AML in the group, VK3ACZ. My apologies to Graham there. I had the right name, I had the wrong suburb. I was thinking of somebody else, but I know I've spoken to Graham before on 10 metres, and he's about a 4x2 with me. Signal's a bit noisy as well, but there's a fair few piles of dirt between the two of us, and so I'm not too bothered about that. Yeah, that same medical condition as one. I'm carer for a lady who's had a sad history with diabetes. She's severely visually impaired, the most uncontrolled diabetic I've ever seen, and wouldn't you know it, on the top of it, she developed these tumours or spurs that pressed on the spinal cord, and of course led to the paralysis. By the time it was discovered, and I've often said all healthcare's a lottery, but she kept going to see Dr. Howlong, who would say, just take more medication for the pain. And of course she was starting to lose movement in one arm and one leg, and became pretty much immobile. And it was only me calling one of the Gem at Home doctors around to come and look at her, where we finally decided that she needed to have a scan to work all this out. Anyway, the outcome for her has not been quite as good, because there was permanent damage done to the nerves. Because of her severe diabetes, they argued as to whether they'd even do the surgery or not. So it was a pretty bleak time for her, and for me watching as a carer too. But, again, it's taken about a year now, and she's got a bit of mobility back, but of course they'd said that she would never
she'd end up in an institution and would never walk again. Well, she's gone back home and is walking, albeit with a walking frame. But anyway, I don't know why I'm telling you all that, Chris, because your outcome is obviously much better than that. But all the same thoughts do go out to you. Grateful for the technology that allows you to speak to her, and I guess you can do the what do you call it, the conferencing where you see each other. Yeah, whatever that's called. I suppose you can do that as well, and that must be something of a great comfort. And I think her prognosis looks very, very good when she's able to remind you to put the garbage out. That's a very, very good sign. Not that I'm telling you anything you haven't figured out for yourself, but all good there, Chris. Anyway, I'm still crowing about how things were with the propagation tonight. You know, even some of the heavies, you know, the people with the 200-foot towers and the huge stacked arrays and 1.5 kilowatts and all that, I even heard them saying what amazing propagation there was on the long path tonight. And unless there's an early CME or something that's caused this early improvement in signals, I don't know. It's just been an absolutely wonderful day, and I can't believe how good it was. I was just getting 5-9 both ways with everybody I spoke to, and long may it last. And when I packed up at about just after 9 o'clock, Europe was still coming in on the long pass. So all that to say, Chris, you need to get yourself on HF soon to get the benefit of these whopping great conditions. Hi. Anyway, back to you, VK3AML and the group, VK3ACZ.
No worries, I'll hand it through to Graham in a moment. Well, Vladivostok would probably be trans-equatorial. It's directly north of us, more or less. Interesting that you got through there. It's quite a distance. Proposal. I'm always looking for video material for the Saturday night sessions. Next time you come round, next time it comes round to your over, perhaps if you would accept my proposal to come along with you on one of these portable HF transmissions with a video recorder and get some video of how it's all set up and such. I'd be interested in that. Anyway, round to Graham, VK3ZSC, and I hope my description of what we're doing here each Saturday night fills you in, Graham. VK3ZSC, VK3AML and group.
VK3AML on the group. This is VK3ZSC. Roger there, Chris and Peter. Yes, I know who Peter is now. I've just brought up his QRZ page, and I remember working Peter in Baronia on at least one or two occasions. Yes, you're late second up on the on your QRZ page. Yes. Okay. I think I understand what is going on. Actually, in my wife's case, I think they're removing a disc. And placing a tantalum cage around the vertebrae to fuse them together. Yes, that's tantalum, not titanium. Apparently, the stuff they make capacitors out of. I had never heard of this before until we got the information from the surgeon. Exactly what form it takes, I'm not sure. But it's a tantalum cage to fuse the vertebrae together. Yes. All very interesting. Actually, I had a laminectomy on my lower back many years ago. It would be nearly, let me see, 50 and she was about 12 at the time. So, well, there you go. Nearly 40 years ago. I had the laminectomy, and then about 20 years later I had to have another one. The second one was much quicker to recover from, but I have recovered fully from both. So there we go. Yeah, okay. Well, I don't think I've got much more to say. Oh, it must have. I guess it was last Saturday that I heard you talking with David. I remember that Peter. You were talking with Peter and David. Actually, I think I had worked David only earlier that day, or maybe the day before. I had worked David for the first time, and then I hear him talking to you on Saturday night, and yes, there we go. Okay, well, I've done enough waffling. I think I'll put it back to you, and I'm not sure who's to go next. Maybe Peter. Put it back to Peter. VK3ACZ. This is and the group. This is VK3ZSC.
Yeah, VK3ZSC, VK3ACZ. I'll put it back to you there, Chris, as your net control for the night. Over.
Oh, not really necessary. Sorry to hear about your wife there, Graham, but I know that with magnetic resonance imaging and all that sort of stuff, that they can do wonders in locating sites for surgery without any invasive process at all. That and what do they call that scanner when they put you in a barrel and spin the radioactive source around? I forget. I'll hand it round to Peter, VK3ACZ, VK3AML.
Yeah, 3AML, 3ACZ in the group. I think you're thinking of CAT scans. Yeah, well, there's MRIs and there are CAT scans. The CAT scans are one that you get the dose of the radiation. But anyway, yeah, medical imaging for diagnostic purposes. Boy, haven't we come along in leaps and bounds even in the time that I've been around, which is, now that I think of it, is a long time. But you mentioned, well, I mentioned before, but you returned with Vladivostok. Yes, that was the only contact I made on 15 metres today, Chris. It was just too much action on 20. I wanted to have a quick look on 15 and 10, and I couldn't break myself away from it. It was just so good. But anyway, if you'd want to make a bit of portable operation the subject of a video, I'd be happy to oblige with that, so long as you always film from behind me, because after all, we want it to be fit for human consumption. Hi. We don't want to scare the viewers away. Yeah, and one other thing is that while propagation was so good, it also meant that I got to hear a lot of the VK4s very strong, and somebody made the comment that, well, no wonder, we've got an incredible ground plane to work on now with all this ocean that's part of us all. Boy, I couldn't believe it when I was hearing some of the figures quoted for the amount of rain that they've been getting from Sydney north all the way to, well, it sounds like Rockhampton missed the most of it from what I gleaned today on 20 metres, but Brisbane has certainly been getting a bucketing. I presume you're well aware of that there. Chris, back to you, VK3AML, VK3ACZ.
Yeah, I'd seen some of the news of it. A bit frightening, and a couple of people died. I think the two people that died were both swept away in their cars. Obviously the car sank, and there's a trick with getting out of the car if it goes underwater, and that is to wait for the car to completely submerge before pushing the door open. Otherwise the water coming in stops you from opening the car door. But when you're panicking, you don't think of that sort of stuff, unfortunately. Yeah, I would be interested to do videos of the portable operation. I don't know whether you do it during the day or always during the evening. During the evening's a bit harder to do because you have to provide some sort of illumination, although that's not beyond the realms of possibility with a 7 amp hour lithium battery and suitable LED light sources. Round to Graham for one more. VK3ZSC, if you're still about Graham, VK3AML, with a pause if anybody else would like to break in.
VK3AML, VK3ACZ, this is VK3 Zulu Sugar Charlie. Okay, look, I haven't got much more to say. I tend to waffle at times. I'm not a very good conversationalist, I'm afraid. So I'll just say that Peter's signal strength has definitely come up, no more noise, and he's about strength 5. I'd say he's 5 and 5, whereas Chris is about 60 over 9. 60 over 9. I don't think I've seen such a strong signal. Okay, so there you go. Back to the net control of VK3AML, VK3ZSC.
Similar story here with you, Graham. You're pounding in here at some incredible strength. It's if I was using a meter with a needle, the needle would be bent every time you come on. So there must be some incredibly good line of sight path between us. I'm not actually. I think I'm not actually where QRZ.com says I am. I moved from Surrey Hills to my present location in 2014, which is 8 years ago. And at Surrey Hills, I was near the hilltop where the Harding Street telecommunications tower is, between there and the water tank that's on the corner of Elgar Road and Canterbury Road. We moved across near where Kmart is in Burwood Highway, near the corner of Blackburn Road, 7 years ago, and made quite a real estate killing on that, such that my wife and I could afford to retire as a result, which is great. But now I'm in East Burwood, and we have the same elevation as previous, and I'm line of sight to the city to the west, on top of this ridge that I'm on, and I'm line of sight also out to the Dandenong Ranges, across the Dandenong Creek Valley to Peter in the other direction. Now, to the north, I would have thought that there was the hill that Mitcham Reservoir's on between me and Don Vale, but you might be in a part of Don Vale that's kind of facing my way. If you're on the south side of the ridge that's on Doncaster Road, you'd be pretty right. If you're on the north side, a lot of that's a blind spot for me. 2 metres is funny that way. There are some areas you think you would get into, you don't, and vice versa. I'm always amazed with what 2 metres can do, and I got reports, for example, from Mount Tassie, which is down past Moe, without any conditions at all. So I, for some strange reason, have a great reach down towards the Latrobe Valley. But there are other directions where I just positively can't get through. For example, parts of Dandenong, because they're shaded from me by the Police Academy Hill, which is approximately south. Anyway, round to Peter, VK3ACZ, and thanks for that. I'll arrange with you somehow, Peter, to find a convenient afternoon or an evening and pop out on the train with my video camera, and we can take it from there. And do a little feature on Saturday nights like we did with VJS, who has been slamming me for taking videos with him when he was wearing a T-shirt. He would have worn something much better if he knew I was going to shoot the video, apparently. No doubt he'll respond to that. VK3ACZ with a pause in case we have any breakers. VK3AML.
VK3AML in the group VK3ACZ. He shouldn't be worried. Tell him he's got a great face for radio. Hi. And I think I told him on the night when he was objecting mildly that he looked okay, and I stand by that. And Graham, yes, your signal's picked up a bit too. You're a 5 and 5 now. I never cease to be puzzled by FM 2 metre propagation. I know because going around the various repeaters, boy, there can be huge amounts of signal strength discrepancy at different times between them all. And I'm not just talking about the Troppo. In fact, a couple of times this week the Hepburn charts rang true because I was getting into St Valentine's Peak repeaters there on 6 and 2 metres. But funny thing is, though, that I have more success with either Mount William, VK7 or wherever on 70 centimetres as opposed to 2 metres. I would have thought of all of them that 2 would be the more reliable when that tropo scatter is happening, but there you go. Yeah, I just know that it's the humidity in the air or whatever it is that makes for big differences even with the local repeaters. But there you go. So there's been some sort of QS Baker or enhancement or something for Graham's signal to come up, and all good there. And there was something else I was going to say this over, and I don't know what it was now, Chris, so I'll put it back to you. I think I'm starting to wear down. Purchased a new TV this week, nothing fancy, just a 55-inch job, and I'm overwhelmed at the technology now that you point the remote at the screen and you press the OK button on the bit that you want to. It's a touch screen but from a difference, and everybody else will be saying, oh, that technology's been around for years, but not for me, it hasn't. So yeah, overwhelmed with picture clarity, and goodness me, it seems like only yesterday I was looking at a grainy old black and white TV with horrible horizontal lines on it when the insulators on the 44K lines out in the street were arcing and sparking. I'm sure you know what I mean. What a difference that you can see every blade of grass on a sporting field in a television picture. But there you go. That's the new digital and the new technology for you. VK3AMN in the group. VK3AML in the group. VK3ACZ.
VK3ACZ in the group, VK3AML. Well, yeah, just curious, the 55-inch, is it 1080p or 4K or what?
Yeah, it's 4K.
Okay. In that case, you'd be getting pretty spectacular results on the high-definition channels. Okay, 55-inch. I think our largest one's 48-inch, but our lounge room's fairly small, so, and I think it's only 1080p. I was thinking, this is before the lockdowns, I was doing quite a bit of lecturing for U3A and Probus groups, and occasionally TAFEs, and I got a bit fed up with the way every time I'd strike a lecture room video projector or data projector, the connections were different, the results were different. It got to the point where I was considering buying a 1080p or 4K video projector, and I'd be up for about $1,000, and I'm glad now that I didn't get one, because the technology of those things is advancing apace and the prices are slowly falling. Though with this Ukraine thing, who knows what's going to happen. Anyway, do we have any breakers before I hand it back? Note you want to get off there, Graham. All the best to you. Thanks for calling in. VK3ZSC. And back to, I guess, VK3ACZ with a pause, and we might wind it up a little earlier than normal if nobody else comes in. VK3ACZ with a pause, VK3AML.
Yeah, VK3AML in the group, VK3ACZ, and 7-3 to you there, Graham, and thanks for coming up. It's been good to have somebody there since Dave is missing in action tonight. And hope all's good there, and we'll have the two of us back again next week, all things being even. And yes, you mentioned troubles with the Ukraine situation. I believe there were big threats of fuel prices going through the roof, and I'm sure they will. Any excuse will do. But I'm gratified to see that it hasn't immediately hit the Bowsers here. It's still at the exorbitant, ridiculously high price it was before the conflict officially started. So, threats of $2 plus a litre will come to fruition soon. I'm just glad they haven't at the moment. But anyway, I will make this a final and say my 7-3 to you as well, Chris. And as always, thank you again for the broadcast and for the effort that you put into bringing us something interesting each week. The highlight for me, since I missed, I only caught 50 minutes of it. The highlight for me was the Archives of New Zealand and their broadcasting. I just loved the whole thing. And to think, though, that they were transmitting to England when I know as a kid I used to listen to my shortwave receiver and think that I was hearing the BBC from England, but I believe it's, for a long, long time, it's been broadcast from Singapore. But anyway, that was just with me imagining where the radio waves were bouncing off the ionosphere and where exactly they were coming from. I suppose they went via telephone cable or satellite to get to Singapore in the first place. But half the fun was receiving the signals from foreign places. I'm sure you can relate. You were a shortwave listener yourself. But anyway, thank you again. Stay safe as always. Best wishes to Prue, and look forward to catching up with you during the week or next Saturday night, whichever one comes first, Chris. Cheers from VK3ACZ, and good night.
Yeah, good on you, Peter. Thanks for that. Just answering a couple of questions that have come up on the text box next to the video. NPI test asked, Chris, was that your diamond-type collinear, which is still on Harding Street opposite the tower in Surrey Hills? No, our house in Surrey Hills was in Newton Street, 2 Newton Street, which is 2 streets back from Harding Street, but I know the person who has that house on the corner of Harding Street, and it's the aunt of Robert Broomhead, who was prominent in WIA circles, and I think he was setting that up for his aunt for she wanted to listen into some utility service or something, and it's an ideal receiving site. I know from personal experience that they keep everything electrically very quiet around that Telstra tower, and there's very little interference from it, so that'd be a good place for it. But yes, it's on Robert Broomhead's aunt's house, which has a big cypress hedge around it, NPI test. I know the antenna well. I think it may be actually the same antenna I have here. It's a 3-section white job about 5.6 metres long from its tie point with the mast. Okay, I'll give one more call. Have we got any other breakers before we close? VK3 Alpha Mike Lima, standing by briefly. Okay, with that we will finish off a slightly shorter than normal transmission, concluding at midnight, or close enough to it. Thanks to all those who popped up on the text chat. I think there have been, 118 playbacks, and at the moment we're down to 11 concurrent viewers. This transmission and this YouTube live stream occurs every Saturday night, as long as Mr. Putin doesn't blow us to kingdom come in the meantime. There's a horrible thought. I seem to be getting lots of horrible thoughts this week, unfortunately. It's a pity this isn't alcohol, this bottle I've got here. It's just grape juice, sparkling red grape juice. Makes me regular. Anyway, I'll see if there are any other questions I have to answer on the list here. VK2WAY. Yeah, Jared suggesting that we arrange an internet means of talking back. I will have to look into that more seriously. Naturally, with my wife in hospital and all of this Ukraine stuff going on, and me monitoring the YouTube vlog channels as well as web SDRs, I haven't had a great deal of time to look into internet talkback alternatives, but it'll be interesting to see what happens if I do. The thing I fear on internet is that we might get a free-for-all CB type feedback. Who knows? It's worth a try anyway. I'll look into it further. In the meantime, thank you, people, on 2 meters and also on the net. VK3 Alpha Mike Lima now closing on 147.475. And
good night, Chris.
And yeah, good night, Pete.
Good night, Chris and Peter. 73.
Oh, sorry, Graham. I didn't know that you were still there. All the best to you, Graham, and thanks for popping up. I'll just conclude on the YouTube live stream and close that off now. Okay, and thank you to the people who come up on the YouTube live stream each week. Really appreciate that. And it'll be interesting to see what feedback I get, if any, of the on the stuff, the vlogs of the various poor souls who are forced to flee their homes in Ukraine. Just imagine, you got to leave your home, there are bombs dropping, and you can only take anything that a car can fit. It's not a very attractive prospect for the poor beggars. So this is VK3AML inviting everybody on the live stream. Do tune in next Saturday night, 9:30 p.m. Melbourne time, and we'll have another session on a 2.5 hour or maybe 3 hour basis. Video segments first, and then later a chat. We're a bit thin on for people on the chat. Oh, and g'day from California, VK3HWB. Gosh, it must be late there. It must be about 5 o'clock in the morning. It's, what time here? 11:54, just coming up to midnight. So, all the best to everybody, and we'll see you next week, he said, looking for the stop streaming button.